We are now streaming on YouTube. Thank you, Chair.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate that. So we will call this meeting to order of the Ad Hoc Charter Settlement Fund Committee. If we could, Ms. Eldridge, could you call roll?
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell, Councilmember McCutcheon, Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano.
Here.
All right. So I believe the first item on the agenda here is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of those minutes or discussion? Councilmember Clark?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Perfect. Second from Councilmember Garitano. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Pretty easy when there's not that many people.
Councilmember
Looks like Councilmember
Dodwell.
Dodwell is coming in right now. I'll let her get up and going. Good afternoon, Ms. Dodwell.
I'm going to say something. Can somebody say something back to make sure
Yep.
I've got audio?
Yep, we can hear you.
We can hear you great. But you can't hear us, can you?
Mm-mm.
We'll give her just a minute here to get that straightened out. Any improvement, Councilmember Dodwell?
I don't believe she can hear us just yet.
Nope. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you just fine.
I can't hear anything. Let me try a different set of headsets.
Can you hear us now, Councilmember Dodwell? Miss Dodwell, can you hear us now?
Okay. While she's working on that, if we let's go ahead and move into the for information. I will take some assumptions. She's probably read through that. So as far as the charter settlement funds document that was included on the agenda, Mr. Lee, would you like to cover that?
Yes, so just a little quick update on the trash rebate program. Just from last week, the department did send a message out with similar language to the committee members. Just want to give a quick update that the department, along with the mayor, did meet with both haulers, Republic Services and Gateway Disposal, to discuss the idea of what a trash rebate program would actually look like and whether or not the city applying a lump sum at the beginning of some kind of agreement would then be able to stretch our dollar further than just 1-for-1. Both haulers did seem open to the idea, though at the time it would need some more massaging, if you will, to get down to the bare bones of what an agreement would look like. 3 different ideas were kind of brought together during this time. One was that we would apply our $1,010,000 settlement towards both haulers, respective of both of their amount of homes on a per capita basis, if you will, for both haulers, and then they would give, so it averages out to be about $7.59 per month. That would be stretched out to something like maybe $8 per month over the course of that year when the program's in, when it's active. The other option was something that we would pay this money up front and it would forego having any annual price increases for year 2, 3, or 4, which that does actually gain about $29,000 from Republic of getting added value and about $9,000 of added value from Gateway Services. What it was kind of found was that the third option, which seems to be probably the ideal solution that we would work towards if anything were to materialize out of this, would be something in between. So having a credit be applied to the account for a certain duration of time, while also potentially foregoing an increase to the price over the course of time. So just for example, what might be able to be a successful proposal in this regard would be a $7.59 credit. So you get the dollar for dollar credit application, but maybe you don't get an increase in year 2. So that is kind of the if you will, the carrot of the agreement. So at this time, the department has been instructed to, massage this out a bit, get something on paper. But just wanted to provide that update as we are kind of gearing towards, going through this project matrix. The department's available for questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any questions or comments? Anyone? Okay. I actually have one of, do you have, and this might be hard to answer, but a concept of any type of time frame that you'd be able to have something figured out? Again, we're kind of up against the clock, so to speak, of holding out on this as being an option. So I just want to make sure that we would have time to make some sort of decision around that before the council meeting on Monday.
Yes. So in this case, and this was discussed, that and a motion was referred to that technically this was all supposed to come back to council in January. That's what at least a motion that said, but I know we are trying to rush towards the actual, the part about the balance sheet, which is very critical here. From the conversations with the haulers, it would be very near impossible to get a signed dotted agreement by the time we would have to post the agenda for to apply this. It would what the haulers said was that if this was something that at the January council meeting was something we wanted to consider, that would be doable. But with the holidays coming up and with just the kind of the magnitude of it, that would be the issue, is getting it by next Monday.
Gotcha. Okay. Councilmember Garetano.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting together this information regarding our options with the trash rebate program. It does bring to life more now what options we can consider. So in reviewing them, I feel that the best of those options there would be a hybrid solution. I think that'd be a win-win across the board. First, providing immediate relief to our residents, and I think we have to be very impactful in whatever decision we make. So our residents do need to see something which would be some form of relief. But also, I do think that the hybrid solution would be beneficial because it would lessen the impact of future price increases. So therefore, it just makes good sense here that, in my opinion, I think a hybrid solution is a good one here, both for immediate and then for long term. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. And if it's appropriate that, we take action to allocate these funds to an appropriate bucket, then do let us know, and, we can at least take that action.
Gotcha. Thank you, Councilmember Garitano. Ms. Eldridge, I saw you had your hand up. Is there something that you had?
Oh, I was just, Councilmember Dodwell was trying to get in the meeting, so I just wanted to make sure she was moved over.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Councilmember Dodwell, are you able to hear now with your headset?
Yes, I can hear now. Sorry.
Perfect.
I guess I had one go DOA on me, so.
That happens a lot. No problem.
I did have a question though.
Sure.
So are we only considering that we're going to reduce or give some kind of a rebate back to the residents for the trash? Or are we looking at other options that had been thrown out?
Yes,
Okay.
we're still considering. So if you look at the documents that are on the agenda, which will be the
Mhm.
next item under for action, we have that matrix of different projects
Okay.
and options
Okay.
for those funds. So this was just an update, so we knew what we were kind of looking at from the trash rebate perspective.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience as my technology decided to fry on me.
Absolutely no problem at all. Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. Since we don't know one way or the other on the trash rebate, if we decided on something like Councilmember Garitano had just mentioned that we use like a hybrid, and if we looked at that as with both what I call a Bob and a wow, best of the best solution and a worst of the worst. So if it works, if that is the case, we could calculate our matrix using that information, or also do it with if it doesn't, if that they won't agree to that, so that we can see both ways when or have it calculated both ways, and it'll save us time in the long run.
No, great suggestion. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. Any other questions or comments under the trash rebate program update? All right, well then we'll move into ready for action, and that's our review of the project matrix. Mr. Lee, I don't know if it's you or somebody else on staff that would want to kind of lead the review of that, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so so two items here. So you'll notice on the agenda, we actually have two documents listed here, and I wanted to give the committee an option here, what kind of pick your own path type of deal. So the first document, the City of Wildwood settlement matrix, if you will, you'll see that there's some good information in there that I think is pertinent into making a good decision here. But also, you'll see that they have, some of the all of the items that were discussed during the last committee meeting. But that being said, with the help here, and I have to give a little credit here to Ms. Clark because she's very good at this. She did help put together a nice chart that kind of goes through additional material and also provides an opportunity for us to weight our criteria. So I was going to provide two options here. We could either use the more simplified version, or we could just use that as more of a for information to help us guide the decision. And then if you would like, I could share my screen. If you look at that second document that has the weighted totals, please note that that is just an example. The weighted totals are an example up there. We could go through and assign 1 through 17. Each of these different criteria, and we could also decide, the committee could decide if they don't think one's important or they think doesn't need to be included, it could be removed. It's all dependent on the committee's decision. And then we could actually rank them together. And then we could go through each project and just rank these out one by one. And it'll actually in live time provide you an updated priority score. So if you all would want to do that, I would be more than happy to share my screen, and then we could walk through each of these criteria to determine which one would be, number 1, number 2, number 3. Note that the higher the criteria score, so 17 is the highest, that means that criteria is the most important to you and to the residents. The 1 is the least important in this regard. So I'll turn it over to the committee now on which direction we'd like to go. But I can share my screen now and walk through this with everyone if that's what we decide to do. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Comments or questions regarding that matrix or thoughts on which format to use? Councilmember Garitano?
Yeah, just a quick question, like, so I don't have all of the information in front of me as we go through this, so let me make sure, are you the one that's going to provide us with what goes in, like, for example, the 5-year strategic priority plan list? Do you have that list in front of you, and are you going to now go through that and add those in there?
That we would do it together, but we would, that's why we have members of myself, Mr. Vunich, Mr. Brown, we would be able to assist where questions lie. So if we walk through this together, we could answer questions as they come up. And then also with the strategic plan, that would be something we would be able to note immediately. But I wanted to leave it empty because the real purpose of this is that the staff here, we don't want to influence your decision here. We would like the committee to make the decision just based off of, the fact that this is not our decision to make.
Well, I guess just to wrap up, I mean, I would think, and hopefully almost all of these would be just simple yes, no. Like, I don't know that we need to have like a debate over it, but that's my only concern, is where there's some things that are a little bit subjective, like, where there's one over the other, but we need to have a process in place to break those ties, let's say. So,
Right.
Well, in this case, how, if you don't mind, Chair, may I speak to this?
Sure.
Yes. So how we had planned to do, if we wanted to use the advanced criterion, we would rank the criteria, and that would be agreed upon. It we could run into some, headbutt in there, but how we had it broken out was, a 0, 3, 5, and 9 score, and each one kind of has their own meaning, depending on the criteria being listed. A 0 would be pretty much like doesn't have an impact, could potentially even be a negative impact. So, like for a strategic plan, not listed on the strategic plan at all, you'd probably be a 0. If it's on the strategic plan, but it's not, at the top, it's just the very bottom, that would probably be a 3. Something mid range would be a 5. And then this is, top 2 of the goals on our strategic plan, top 3, that would be constitute a 9. So we would be able to discuss that as well while walking through this, or we could go through the simpler version, but this does weight each of the criteria, which could add some benefits because, obviously each thing has its own importance.
how did you decide on the weighting then?
This was this is an example based off of just discussions, but in this case, we would walk through the weighting together as well before we even start grading everyone. But Ms. Clark, I think Ms. Clark has a.
Yeah, she does. I was making sure Councilmember Garitano was finished with his questions, but yeah, Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, the reason that I believe that we needed the weighting of these of the criteria is because the first matrix is just based on an ordinal ratings ranking, and that doesn't give us an idea of prioritizing them in a way that takes into account the ratio that's going on, that we have a criteria that is maybe the strategic plan is a high ranking, and we might have beautification that isn't as important in our ranking system for this. So we have to, if we count it all the same in this ordinal way of the first matrix, then we really haven't taken into account the magnitude of each one of those criteria. So I think that the way that Thomas has it in the second matrix is the only way to do it logically.
And when you're saying second matrix, can you put that on the screen so we know what you're looking at versus what I may have opened on my iPad?
1 second, let me help you out here.
Okay, thank you.
Can you all see my screen now?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, that's a totally different one than.
Well,
what
there's
came-
there's two on the agenda. One, they're both
Okay.
PDFs, so this is an Excel document for it. But what you'll notice about this one, I provided an example and inputted just, sparsely the numbers up here, but we would go ahead and rank these criterion, or you as a committee could just remove them completely. 1 through 17, 17 being the most important to you, and then obviously 1 being the least important. And then from there, we have a nifty little equation set up here. So once we're ranking either 0, 0, 3, 5, or 9, when you input that here, it actually multiplies it by your criterion and then adds each of these together to get your finalized score, which does adequately rank each criteria.
Could you real quick, sorry, could you do me a favor, Mr. Lee, and in the lower right-hand corner there, kind of zoom in just
Yeah.
a peg or two to make that font a little more visible.
Mhm.
It's better, everyone.
Yeah.
That's much better. Yes. Thank you.
I can do it a little bit
Mhm.
more.
That's even
There.
better.
That's great.
Excellent.
Councilmember Clark.
Sorry, I didn't take my hand down.
Oh, okay, no problem. So I guess then the discussion comes into of which route would we prefer to, and then if we choose to go this route, we would then have to go into a discussion about the matrix. So Councilmember Garitano.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I like this. I do think that, if you're gonna do something where you just solicit from each of us what are our ratings of criteria, and then you take our individual scores and sum them up, and then you determine who, which criteria got the highest score, then that might be, one way to do it. If you go about a different way and there's a discussion and then you're trying to get consensus, I think that's going to take a lot more time. So my only worry is how much time we're able to dedicate to do that today. Selfishly, myself, I won't be able to spend a lot of time, so I'm a little bit worried about maintaining a quorum. So that's what I'm wondering. Is it a homework assignment that we provide you with our ratings and criteria, and then you do that, but then we still have to go through each
We're still gonna have to
project.
discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, every project and give it a 0 through 9, and then would also have to come back with the rating. And we also need to come in as a consensus on the rating, right? So it's, I'm sure that you could ask all 4 of us and we would each say like, no, this one's the 17, and we have to kind of hash that out to see where that would come through, or at least what that criteria is to make that final decision. So no, I think that's a really good point, Councilmember Garitano. If it's okay, Councilmember Garitano, I'm going to jump in and let Councilmember Clark make her comment, and then we can circle back to that discussion. Is that all right with you? Perfect. Councilmember Clark?
I think that that's our job as a team, is to
Mhm.
determine the criteria. And so I think that we can, or the ranking of the criteria. And I think that we could do it I don't see that would take that long to rank those. It might take longer to rank the ratio of the project to the criteria in the main part of the, but if we all used the same, the same scales, like one of the criteria there says feasibility of 0 is it's all completely dependent on resources, and 3 is potential for significant special challenges, and 5 special challenges that are manageable, and 9 no special challenges. So if we have something to go by like that we can look at and see that, if it's over this much money, then it's going to get a 0. If it's this much money, it'll be 5, so that we have something to go by when we put the numbers in the boxes. And if we each one did it ourselves, the main part of the matrix, then we could compare those and see that most likely we're going to come out with practically the same the same ranking system in the yellow. Even though it might be a little bit different numbers, if we use the same criteria, the same guidelines for the criteria, we'll probably get the same order of projects.
Gotcha. Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
Is it possible for us to go through one example as a group so we at least understand the methodology that we're supposed to be using to both weight and prioritize, or are we just, I hate to sound dumb, but I'm not the mathematician that Teresa is, and so therefore I'm trying to understand how I would weight various things. I think I have a sense of it, but it'd be nice to see an example.
Well, I
So-
think the thing too, if I made they have the formula that takes care of the weighting for us. So
Okay.
basically we just need to rank the criteria, the top row there in blue, from 1 to 17, 17 being the highest, criteria, 1 being the lowest.
Mhm.
And then there's a scoring system, and we could probably realistically, I think we could get back to that as an explanation towards the end. But then every project gets a score in each of those criteria, and then the formula takes care of adding up the weightings and doing all of that. So we wouldn't
Okay,
really have to know. You don't have to know too much of the math behind it. You just have to know
Okay.
kind of what number to
Okay.
put in, and it takes care of the math in the back end, right?
okay, thank you.
No problem. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I would suggest that we take Thomas's criteria rating and leave it on there and look at that, because that may be what we all would agree to. Or if there's a few things that need to be changed, we can speak to those. But if we've got something to start with, maybe that's a starting point.
Mhm.
I personally am good either way. I think we kind of have to look at them from a holistic standpoint from the jump anyway. But as far as a jumping off point is, I guess, Councilmember Dodwell, I'll get you here in a second, but I guess for
I just
that
didn't-
factor, is everybody okay and good on time? I know it was a little concern, Councilmember Garitano. I'm also not super abundant with it, but that we can maybe make a pass at these top weighting criteria and try to get those ranked from the 1 to 17. And then maybe the homework is we go back and each of us individually would weight, kind of fill out this matrix on our own. And then we could circle back and compare those and see, where we have differences and where we have similarities. And I think Councilmember Clark is correct in that we'll probably hit them pretty close with, 1 or 2 smaller changes, and that would just be points of discussion, but at least it could potentially narrow down the conversation to 1 or 2 options being the top options. And we could be like, okay, this is definitely the route to go. Or the top option is the same for all of us, and we just know that the other stuff, yeah, there's questions, but we all agree that this is probably, looking at this, where we should probably go with the funds. One other thing, and I will, this is more of a, I guess, legal question, if we could circle back to this, Mr. Lee. So I would say there's not really going to be a realistic time frame where we're going to be able to take this and probably fill this out and circle back and meet again and have some sort of decision made before the council meeting on Monday. So we won't be able to make a decision on this, but at least that would go to council until January. So I know that falls in line with, I think we were discussing, the potential of having an unbalanced budget, and what that is. So I guess my question is, if we need to take more time on this, which I think is the correct process to go through, is if we're going to do this, let's do it right. What steps do we need to do then as far as our recommendation to council for the meeting on Monday, and then what our steps are going forward?
Yes, so in this case, if, obviously we could always have another council meeting in December. I don't think that is going to occur. So if a formal recommendation and then an ordinance approving said recommendation isn't approved in December, so in January, so how we look at this is the case was the the settlement was closed this year, officially. So that 1,010,000 officially became revenue for the year 2023 because we held it in a liability account until we knew for sure that that money would be the city's. So we count it the minute you actually bring it in, which was, I think it was June of 2023. So in this case, after January 1st, well, December 31st, once January 1st hits, the money didn't go anywhere. It still is in the city's coffers. It still exists. It's just now when we're looking at, say we get a final recommendation and we have a project we're ready to zoom in on, and we finish that February 1st, let's just say that. And we move forward, we have an ordinance approving it. We're going to spend 1,010,000 on this in February. That would then show, depending on where that 1,010,000 is coming out of, which fund. In some cases, it might be the general fund, but I do know there's amended budget that would move it to the capital improvement sales tax fund. That account, whatever fund that is, would show an expenditure of 1,010,000 without having a revenue of 1,010,000 to balance it out. So yes, if we don't have a formal recommendation, the thing that was needed in order to pretty much take advantage of the windfall, the revenue windfall in 2023 for the balance sheet purpose, we would have needed, and we would need a formal ordinance. Well, it's an ordinance. An ordinance that says the city of Wildwood is hereby taking this $1,010,000 and putting it towards X project for this duration of time. And here's what we look to accomplish through it. Typically, you want to have a contract also tied to that. That being said, we did check our auditing team, and they said it would be fine as long as it was going to a specific project with a specific notation. So moving forward, if the council is willing to understand that, hey, we had this money come in, this is not like we're, it shouldn't happen every year is the answer here. But we know that there's 1,010,000 with a potential addition of 45,000. So it'd be 1,055,000. Then that would, after January 1st, that's the only real way of doing it, because if you don't have an ordinance encumbering the funds in 2023, then the funds then go into your unreserved fund balance, which now you're tapping into the unreserved fund balance.
So, and I'm gonna just come in this from a real, frankly, ignorant standpoint of I don't understand anything about city accounting, right? Other than, oh man, we have a deficit in one of our accounts and a surplus in another account, so the books don't balance up, but we know why. Is there really like some sort of implication to that? Like, we're not going to have somebody come in and be like, well, now you owe us $500,000 because your budget isn't balanced, right? Like, this is just, frankly, we just have to be able to say this is why it's not balanced.
Yes. So yeah, that you're correct. So in any time you have the money to cover, any whatever you're trying to spend on. So if you have money in your unreserved fund balance, then you're fine. The problem comes in is if, and we have a decent, healthy unreserved fund balance. Let's just say that up front.
Yeah.
But if we were, say we didn't have that and, we only had like $500,000 in there and we spent 600, that means we would have to potentially issue a bond or go pass another tax. So that would be some serious ramifications. That being said, if we, it's more of, can you really frame it as, hey, we did receive this money as a settlement? We would almost just need to continuously know what that final amount is, which I believe it's going to be that 1,055,000. Understanding that amount is kind of the measure of where you're wanting to be. You can say at that point, if it stays in the general fund, of course, that, the general fund, we expect to be 1,055,000 in the red, specifically because in this case, we had the windfall. We wanted to do our due diligence, but we put it towards this project. We knew where it went. There's a contract. At that time, there would probably be a contract associated with it as well. And as long as everyone understood that. The problem is, at the end of the day, when you're looking at a public record of, the balance sheet, you are seeing that pretty lopsided number, which if you don't know the context, that's where I would say the trouble is.
would that public record only remain until after we utilize the funds, and then it would balance out later in the 2024 fiscal
No,
year?
it would, unless we received another large windfall of revenue, that's a number that would dominate the 2024 balance sheet.
So realistically, it's, we go that route, our 2024 balance sheet's going to be off. Like, just we have to basically just go in accepting that the 2024 balance sheet's going to be off, and
Yeah.
we're doing that from a standpoint. I mean, I would assume, just from also a matter of public record, that we could make sure it is, again, on the record, I guess, stated or something clearly in a council meeting that says, hey, these funds are, just as a for information item, we have these funds, these are going to be here. We understand as a council that it's going to affect the balance sheet, but this is where it came from and this is what's intended for. I would assume we could do something like that, so then it's also on the record as to the exact amount and what it's for.
I would agree with that sentiment. I mean, anything that, so say whenever we do, the committee here makes a recommendation and the council feels comfortable with an ordinance executing it, there very well could be a mentioning even within the ordinance. Whereas
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, this money was recorded as revenue in 2023, and the city council deems it necessary to put it back towards the community. Where I can almost read it now, but that you can definitely note this within the legislation, but also within a memorandum that goes with it to make sure it's noted. And then honestly, it would just be something that, council members and staff and anyone that might be talking to the public would just need to be able to know. So people don't think we're just frivolously spending an additional $1 million. It's more so, hey, we spent this $1 million because it was a windfall from a settlement from the previous year. And honestly, we wanted to make sure that, we spent it on the right project. So we went through a pretty tedious process to really determine which project would be most beneficial to our residents and community.
Gotcha. So, I would guess that probably the best avenue for that, just as sort of an outbound from this conversation, would be to have some sort of a motion, if that's the route we want to go, right? Like that, then to have some sort of a motion that would say our recommendation to council is continue to research potential projects and where that needs to go, understanding that our budget will be out of balance for 2024, but we want to follow a guideline of really weighting these and figuring out where the best place to spend this money is. I'm not a wordsmith, but I would think something like that. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lee, if that would probably be in order, and to kind of get something official from this committee and then go to council, so there was an understanding.
That would be astute. If we want to, I think just a motion describing just that would be just fine. That would be totally acceptable. And I think that just shows, hey, the committee has been meeting, but here's where we're at right now. It's kind of a checkpoint, Charlie.
Right. Yeah. Councilmember Dodwell.
I'll make a motion that we present to council at Monday's meeting that the committee has identified the available funds and some potential additional funds, and that we as a committee have chosen to postpone use of those funds until the 2024 calendar year, so that we can clearly identify the most pressing need for our residents.
Thank you, Councilmember Dodwell. Is there a second for that motion? There's only a couple people, so.
I guess there's no second.
State that time.
Yeah, Councilmember Dodwell, I don't know if you heard that. Councilmember Clark asked if you could repeat that motion verbatim. It needs to be word for word, otherwise we don't get to move forward.
We'll forget that. I'm trying to, I'm not on mute. Okay. I move that we, as a committee, continue our efforts in identifying the most appropriate project that we can apply these funds towards, with a weighted system that clearly evaluates the benefits to our citizens. And therefore, however, it will require that we do not release said funds to a project until the 2024 fiscal year, thus causing our 2023 balance sheet for this particular section of it to be off balance, something along those lines. I'll let somebody wordsmith it. If I was writing, I could do it.
All right, Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, so should we put a time on that when we expect to have it done, like by
End of
January?
January 30th.
Yeah, I would say no later than the February city council meeting. Just
Oh, good idea.
ideally, we would have it for the January, but I always like to allow for the unknown on the off chance that we need to go a little. So if we're early, we're great. If we're on time, that's fantastic.
I will second that motion.
Perfect.
Yeah,
All
Meg,
right.
is that
Any
all right?
discussion? I'm sorry, what was that, Mr. Lee?
I was just asking if Megan got the motion down right. She's taking the notes. Just want to
Oh,
make
gotcha.
sure.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna have to go back. I couldn't write that fast, but I can.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that, Chair.
No problem. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed or abstentions? All right. Motion passes. Councilmember Clark.
So is there a time that we need to have this back to you, Mr. Lee, that with our numbers in the boxes?
Yes. So in this case, Chair, if you don't mind,
Oh, absolutely.
what I will do is right now, I believe you only have the PDF version of this document. I will send over the cleared out version of the Excel document. Please note that, and this is something up to the committee. Do you want me to keep that sample criteria ranking in there, or would you like me to clear that out as well? Either can be done. It takes 2 seconds. So what would be more beneficial to you all?
So I guess my question for that as a follow-up then for the committee members is, do we want to take 10, 15 minutes here and try to take a pass at the weighting and see if we can come to a consensus on those criteria and how we would weight those and kind of give it our best shot? Or would you prefer to take that as the first step of this project and then we would have to kind of circle back? It would probably require at least one additional meeting to hone those in, but I will leave it up to you guys in the interest of time.
I'd move for getting whatever we can get done today in the next 15, 20 minutes.
All right. Councilmember Garitano, are you okay with that? Does that fit with you? I know you're a little crunched for time too. You're on mute, sir.
I will have to go in about a few minutes here.
Okay. Well, if it's okay, we will plug forward and get done what we can get done to get through this. And if we're able to get through that, then it will be great. I think it'd be helpful if we can get this part knocked out just in the interest of time frame to get something back to council. So, okay. So I'm looking at the PDF. Actually, Mr. Lee, would you be able to share that again
Sure.
so we can take a look at that? I think it might be easier if we can.
If you're making changes, yeah.
1 second here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so would you like me to clear these?
No, let's leave those for now, and let's just kind of, if everybody wants to go through and if there's a glaring disagreement with one of these, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just go one by one and kind of figure these out.
Okay.
So we'll take a couple minutes. Everybody kind of look through that list. All right, let's just start through here, go left to right, and if somebody has, if we can just start that route and talk about the rankings and see if there's any that we disagree with. So on the 5-year strategic plan, priority, having that at a 15, is there an opposition to that or a different recommendation?
Well, I think that's our route that we need to be working from, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think that needs to be pretty high. Now, if I may take a quick pivot to this, sorry, Councilmember Clark, you had your hand up.
No, I was just gonna suggest maybe you start with the top one and then go, that would be the lowest ranking. I mean, the highest ranking. So if we started with number 17 and say legal requirements is 17, should that be any lower?
No, I agree with that, Councilmember Clark. I was actually just thinking the same thing of like, this is probably not going to be the most effective way of doing this. So I agree 100%. So if we can make a quick pivot to that, let's jump over to, do we all agree that legal implication, if I can talk, legal implications and requirements would be the highest ranking of those?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with that as well. Mr. Garetano, comment on that? Or are you good? You can just give a thumbs up if you're good with it.
What do you mean by that, legal implication requirements?
I'm taking this from, well, I guess Mr. Lee is, and Councilmember Clark, as you guys put this together, can you provide a little more context to that particular category?
My understanding of the legal implications requirements is that, you're going to get a 0 on that number if by doing this project, you could run into some serious legal impediments and, or, you could find yourself by executing the project, you could find the city being open for liability, potential
Mhm.
lawsuits or things along those lines. So if there's something that's a significant iceberg in the water, that's what I took it as. And then
Mhm.
something that's more so like, for example, something that might be like a 3, maybe be like the Manchester Taylor Road project, because we do have to acquire easements for that. So it's not nearly that bad, but it is a little bit more of a process, puts time onto it.
Gotcha.
Well, I would want anything that we're doing to make sure that we're not doing anything unethical, illegal, that would put the city into harm's way for lawsuits or anything like that. So whatever we're doing, we need to make sure that the legal components of it
Yeah,
are clearly outlined. So that's just standard
yeah,
business.
I think it all depends because, there's
Oh,
low risk and high risk items. But like, I look at the list and it's like, I can make an argument that none of them are there's maybe a technical legal requirement.
Mhm.
And then there is another lens of looking at it where you could say, well, yeah, we're obligated to maintain our roads and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that's,
So I think for me, a little bit of the question on this one, I guess, is, I mean, honestly, if there's a legal implication where we might run into a thing where we're doing something illegal, I would think that would be something we wouldn't want to consider to begin with. So, why would it even be on the list if there is that kind of, but I understand
Yeah.
what Mr. Lee is saying is if there are going to be legal hurdles, as in we need to get lots of approvals, we're gonna have to get easements passed, there's a lot of
yeah.
this stuff that would have to happen. I could see that being a criteria, but then I wouldn't rank it the highest.
Well, that's what I mean too. Yeah. I mean, that's just a requirement to the work. Doesn't mean that it may have to be at the top of the list. It might be something that is not. So
Well, this is at the top of the list because it's because of the criteria, not because of the project. that comes about when you get down to each project. So each project will rate differently. So if there is a project, and I don't have to look at the list of them again, but if there was something on there that, like Main Street Extension or something that was, already had some legal implications, then,
Yeah,
that would rate high. But if
Mhm.
it's something that, oh, no, there's no legal, there's never gonna be any legal, that would be zero.
right.
But
Like
that
I'm
would be
looking
our-
at it the way the criteria is like, just looking at the first one there, deer management. There's no
Mhm.
law that says we need to do that. So to me, there is no legal implication whether the city decides, if the city decides not to pursue that, because we're not violating a law.
Mhm.
I think
And I
it's
guess
more
I
of a
think
risk.
I think of it slightly as the opposite of,
Mhm.
you know, kind of what Councilmember Clark was saying. Like, well, are we doing that? Are we opening ourselves up to maybe a lawsuit from a certain group? Are we going to infringe on some legal right that we need to make sure that we're, because I just think that, that's sort of a go, no go point when you talk about that, like, hey, this is going to open us up to potential litigation, or this violates some statute. That should just be a no-go on that, right? Like there should be 0 points for that because they're not going to get it. And then if there are no legal implications, then it's fine, they get the points. But
And that one could be a 0 or 9.
yeah,
It's either 0 or 9. If that,
Mhm.
if that's what we wanted to do, because, if we need to include it, I mean, that's our number one thing, is to, legislate and keep it legal. But I think it's more of a risk than,
Mhm.
is this project legal to do? It's not about that. It's more the risk.
gotcha. Is everybody clear on that as the definition of that criteria and how it would be scored? I want to make sure that we're clear on the definition before I'm going to ask about whether the weighting is correct. So as far as legal
Mhm.
risk, I guess is what we're talking about with legal implications. So are we good with that?
Mhm.
Good.
Perfect. So with that, then with the clear definition, are we good with that being the highest priority, given the fact that we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in any type of legal predicament on a project?
Yes.
I'm cool with it.
Okay. Well, then that one's settled. Let's go to the next highest. 16 is the city master plan. So I'm assuming this would also be sort of a yes, no, if it is or is not in the city master plan. Being the next highest category, are we okay with that? I am too. I think these are pretty
Yeah,
high.
that's fine.
So, which the next couple sort of fall in that same thing, right? We have 5-year strategic plan priority. So I have a question on this one, Councilmember Clark and Mr. Lee, as you were putting this together. So when I think of the 5-year strategic plan priority, I don't think of it as a scale of like 0, 3, 5, 9. It's kind of the 1, 2, 5, 10, wherever it falls on that strategic plan priority, kind of what number it is.
Mhm.
How would you recommend that scoring would happen then for that? I like the priority level, but I guess I'm just asking it as a bit of a tangential question before I would get everybody's opinion on that.
I would, if you don't mind, Sheriff, the item I was maybe thinking of was that, if you're in the top 3 goals, maybe you get the full 9. And then, if you're on the strategic plan in general, you're talking potentially a 3. If you're kind of at the bottom, maybe even if you're on that additional projects list, you get a 3. But then if you're on maybe that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 goals, maybe that's when you get the 6, the 5. And then 0 would just be something that's not on the strategic plan whatsoever.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And I agree with the priority. I think if we can make sure, just as a side note, once we get these settled and sent out, if we can make sure that we have maybe a an additional tab on this. It kind of goes through and says what the scoring method is for each of these criteria. So we're all clear on that. And as we go through and score them, be great. So the next highest after that is 5-year capital improvement plan. Being at a 14, we good with that, kind of moving down the line of these with order of priority of where they're at in our planning. So then it moves down to 13, environment and wildlife. 13, environment and wildlife.
A quick question before we jump ahead, because we covered strategic plan, capital improvement plan, city master plan.
Yep.
We're missing the town center plan.
Yep.
One question on, and that's true. That is definitely true. Some of these are not, well, most of them are, but okay. Never mind.
Yeah, because Taylor Road, Manchester Road, and it's town center.
So where would you put that?
I think
So do we-
the town center plan, I think, goes right next to the master plan.
Okay, so, but how do we rate that? So if it's, if this is a high number, if it's not in the town center plan, then it's a low ranking project?
Doesn't,
So-
it's not in the town center, it doesn't get, I don't think it would get any kind of ranking there. Right, because we have a town center plan that we need to follow through in completing as well.
Okay, I guess I don't understand then. If you have a town center plan as one of the criteria, then how do you rank it at all? With, you know, if you put it on the matrix, you need to rank it. So do you, how do I rank each one of these projects? Because I can,
Many
if
of them
one
do
gets a
not.
0, it's not on the town center plan. It may still be like internet. I don't know if that's on the town center plan or not, but there's going to be projects that aren't on that plan. Does that mean that they rank really low because of that? I think we need to keep it, the overview of the whole city on this instead of just the town center. My thought, anyway.
No, I think it makes sense. So I think that the question is,
Well, I
again, the
think
town
we-
center plan is important, right? But I think when we're trying to
Yeah.
keep it consistent as far as scoring against all these like deer management, I wouldn't put really as a part of the town center plan, but
No.
it's a pretty important project, right? Like, so
Mhm.
You can make the
The-
same argument. There are things on this list that are not probably in the 5-year capital improvement plan. So how do you rank those?
Yeah,
they would get a 0.
Well, they get a 0 because overall, you know, that's the plan for the whole capital improvement, not just
Yeah.
Hey,
one
Joe,
area.
Joe, you just requested that we put town center in, which can be weighted heavily on that particular criteria. But if I go over to like environment and wildlife, that's not going to have any impact on anything that's going to be in town center. It's not going to be a high
Yeah.
priority for that particular area. So that would lower that overall score. And so it'll balance out, I think, as we go forward. But I do agree that we do need to put the town center plan in here. So I don't see any difference between that and the other criteria that we have up here, because that's a specific portion and area of the town that we want to improve upon. So,
Yeah, it is.
and
But
some of these,
environment and wildlife is for the everything. I mean, environment is safe.
well, we could
safe
take out,
environment.
I
don't
mean,
know.
if we're looking for something that impacts everything, we could take out half the city already has internet access. Not everybody lives on Main
No,
Street.
no, yeah, but that's not a
Extensions on that
criteria.
way.
That's not a criteria. That's a project.
I know, but you talked about scoring it with the criteria for the
Mhm.
project. So each of these projects has different criteria that are important to the overall score on that project. And so I don't understand why the town center master plan is any different than the 5-year capital improvement plan or the master plan in general, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I'd ask, Mr. Lee, what do you think?
I would say, considering if it were to be added, it would, if it were to be added to the criterion, since it only affects a specific portion of the city, it would just probably need to be weighted at a lower score, if anything. But, we do have it. It is there. So that's a tough one, I would say.
Well, yeah, and I think too, you got to recognize that the town center plan, while it's located in the town center serves all of the city. It is the place where everyone comes in for commerce and the site of our future village green. So I would hope when we're making decisions like about the town center, I think most people are putting on their hat that is their city hat, because the trails that are in the town center in that area, those benefit everyone that comes in here. So it's not, I don't think we're singling or isolating, folks by putting the town center plan. Otherwise, we wouldn't have such a significant plan in the history of our city. But I think going back to like its incorporation, the town center plan was a significant part of our city that I would think we'd want to at least keep that there and make things that contribute to the, completion of that plan count.
So if we did that, would it be okay to score it then if we added that in at either a 0 or a 3? Because if you go 0 or 9, you're really gonna skew the results. If it's, say, Route 109 and BA roundabout would not, even if it was, important, it wouldn't rank on the town center plan.
But
Or
again,
would all of these, if everything is related to the town center plan, then would all of these rank?
all of these wouldn't be related to the town center plan. However, if you're looking at some of these items that are listed as the projects, they are outside the town center, and so therefore they might have a higher rating on some of the other criteria, just the same way as you've weighted these other things.
So I think it, and honestly, I'm going to refer back to what Mr. Lee said earlier, if I can kind of try to rein this in. So I think it is, I would agree that it's important to have it as a criteria on here, just because if we're going to look at the city master plan and our capital improvement plan and our strategic plan. So I think maybe, though, what in agreement kind of a little bit what Mr. Lee said, of maybe it's not a 12 per se, but maybe it is a 9 or an 8. So it should be part of it, but maybe it's just not, obviously not weighted as heavily as if it's if a project's on the strategic plan or capital improvement plan, where town center, maybe we just rank that towards the middle. So it doesn't allow it to pack quite as much punch as some of the others, but it does allow it to give it a factor, and then helps sort of even it out. Whereas you said, Councilmember Dodwell, some of these other items where, a town center project probably isn't going to have a huge environmental impact or necessarily a health and safety impact, but so those will kind of balance themselves out a little bit. But I think there's a ability to have a good compromise here, where I think we do have it on there as a criteria, but have it sort of that mid range of where we would weight it, just so it's not overemphasized for things where we would, kind of maybe rule out a project which is really important, but just because it's not considered town center, trying to make it even in the grand scheme of things. So be great to give some bonus edge to those that are on the town center plan, but not so much they would rule out something that's not in that may actually be a higher priority. Does that make sense?
So you think it should be maybe 9?
Maybe like a 9. Yeah, I think just sort of that mid range of where we rank everything. So give it sort of the 9 on that, which would bump the external funding available. Maybe just leave that one blank and we'll work our way down to it and kind of rank as we go through. So so that actually brings us, so if we can do that and circle back, if everybody's good with that, we'll come back to the environment and wildlife rated at a 13. My only, I guess, comment I would make on that and kind of go through is I would probably swap health and safety and environment and wildlife. While it's not a major difference, I think I would probably take the health and safety of our residents slightly over the environment and wildlife, just in a means of making sure that we're providing a safe place for everybody to live, and then we can also address that. But
I'm cool with that.
other thoughts, conversation around that?
I agree.
Okay.
Agreed.
So next criteria, that moves it down from 13-12 down to 11, and 11 ranked. We have estimated cost of project as an 11. Thoughts on that?
I think that's fine where it's at.
Me
I'm
too.
good
I
with
think
that.
it's an important criteria. We want to make sure we give some good weighting to. So with the rest of them blank means we move down to resident input at 10. And I'm trying to look through some of the blank ones. Does anybody see something that they would deem would rank above resident input?
Hang on a second.
Hey, Nathan,
Well,
I have to drop off, all right?
Okay.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Councilmember Garitano. Would I guess kind of giving your opinion on this, would you like to continue to be a part of it, or can we continue? I think you already dropped anyway, so never mind.
Oopsies.
All right, well, then I
Um,
guess we will plug along and we will send him the updated version, and I'll follow up with Joe and make sure we get his input that he's good with what we've come up with. So so back to that, anything that we'd rank higher than resident input?
I had thought resident input would be lower, but I like where Thomas has it in the middle there, because we
Yeah.
need to let them know that it's important.
Yeah. And I would probably have, if I can, just making a suggestion as we move to town center update as 9, then my next thought would probably be the overall update, overall benefit to the city. We also need to actually recalculate this slightly because we should now have 18 instead of 17. So
Yeah, so
that
we
is
should
good
start.
we need to number these back down.
Yep, this has been done. But oh yeah, you're right. I will fix it while we're talking.
Okay. So next item is overall benefit to the city, which would now be a 9.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a 9 and town center goes to 10 and everything goes 1 up.
Yeah,
because
that's
we
what I
go
was
down
thinking. Is
one.
we just add 1 to all of them and continue
Yeah.
down the
Mhm.
path that we're going. So let's not reinvent the wheel. So thoughts on the next item of importance? I'm trying to.
I think, well, I guess time frame doesn't really matter. It's whenever we get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking more maybe the like external funding available, because I think that can help a
Yeah.
lot with cost
Yeah.
as we go through and figure that out.
And that be the number 9
Mhm.
now?
Yeah, I think that would move into number 9.
Okay, yeah, is that where you had it?
I don't remember where he had it before he deleted
Okay.
those, so which is fine.
Okay.
I think we can
Yeah.
move through these last ones pretty quick.
Yep,
Mhm.
we had town center update plan noted as 9. Should we have this
So
higher-
that should be now 10. So every one of them should bump up one.
overall
including
benefit
the-
of the city's 10 as well. So we got
Yeah, we're
Well,
going,
no, so I think we had town center update plan should actually move up to 10, and overall benefit to the city was one below that. It was 9.
okay.
Somebody shout out if they think I'm wrong on that. That's what I was kind of thinking.
No, that's where we're at.
All right, so next highest, based off of what we've got.
so then external funding available, was that 8?
8.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
So now we're on number 7.
Okay.
I think time frame. I really would like to get this closed out this next fiscal year, be done with it.
Yeah.
But is that the most important, is that more important than operation and maintenance expenses that's gonna happen because of these projects?
Yeah.
Mm,
you've got
Because
that's
some of them
a-
are,
Okay, make that number 7 then.
No, I think that's a good point.
that may
Um,
cost us a lot.
And then you can make the other one 6.
If I could make one other, now that I'm kind of read through as a 6 as a suggestion of the feasibility of the project. So if we might run into any issues, I think that kind of also comes into cost. Like anything, we can start down the road of a project and then all of a sudden like, oh, we didn't account for this, and now we're an extra $2 million into it.
Yeah.
And then maybe
Yeah.
a time frame after that.
Well, how about the estimated revenue that we would get from it too, that comes, that's what we just talked about. Not just revenue, but money from the trash rebate has to weigh in there. somewhere.
Yeah.
So the benefits we get, that one he had it at 8, I think,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yep. I would almost maybe rank that rather than though, I think for me, just as a weighting criteria, maybe estimated revenue could maybe change from revenue to like estimated benefit. Because again, the trash rebate, that's not a revenue for the city, but it is going to be a huge benefit for the city as a whole because residents are going to be able to save a little money. So, or maybe estimated financial benefit or something like that with it. I guess just the wording, because we're not really making any city revenue for that.
So what would you want to take off the estimated revenue as one of the,
I think just change the word revenue to like estimated benefit or,
Would that
kind of
be
something
good?
along those lines, just because I don't think we want to have, again, a lot of these projects aren't going to really have, well, most of them aren't really going to have a revenue component to them. They're, Deer management
they-
does not provide us any revenue. Internet access does not give the city any revenue.
Yeah.
Really almost none of these really bring in revenue to the city. They're just kind of improvement projects. So
Mhm.
yeah, but we've already got overall benefit to the city. So I'm saying, do you want to take off one of those and just leave the overall benefit to the city?
I'm good with that if everybody else
Yeah,
is.
let's take it off.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Thomas, sorry, we're.
So Tom, guess what? You get to move all those back down one.
You guys take off one of those.
And we can,
parts
and
of
tell
the
you what, Tom,
calculus.
we can finish up the numbers and then we're going to end at 2. So you can then kind of go back through and update them as we get through that. So no
Okay.
big deal. So that what end for the next one then. So we have it, we think maybe at that point 5 for the time frame.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we keep on some kind of track for getting us completed with this
Okay.
use of
So-
these funds.
What do
So
we got left? We've got
Resident
resident.
benefits, community morale and beautification, and business needs economic development. I would. Man, I really don't have a strong opinion across these last 3, to be
Yeah.
quite honest,
Yeah.
of which one's higher than the other. But
Yeah.
if I was taking a shot at it, well, I guess
I'm going to put economic development at the lowest one because I don't think any of these impact
I think
Or
they could or could not realistically,
Mhm.
I think any economic development, I mean, internet access could be an economic development, but I don't
Right.
think it's
Yeah.
driving a lot. We already have, I mean, honestly, where businesses are going in are going to be town center. They already have internet. So like,
Mhm.
I don't think it drives an extra ton of extra business to it. So,
No.
the other two, you could say 2 and 3 or 3 and 2, whichever. I don't really
Okay,
have a
so yeah, I
preference on-
think the beautification would be, it's wonderful to have, but for this project that we're doing right now, I think it's low. So
Okay,
we could make
Well,
it a 2.
Make it a 2,
All right.
yeah.
And then feasibility was what? I missed that one.
feasibility was 5, which
Mhm.
will now be 4 as we move them all
No,
down.
I fixed it. It's 5. That's locked in.
Oh, did you? Okay, well, never mind. Tom got it. So
And
He's
time
on.
frame is what then?
4.
4.
4, okay. And resident benefits,
We put that as 3.
Mhm.
And then community morale and beautification is 2, and business needs economic development as 1.
Mhm.
okay.
All
Good
right,
job,
perfect.
Chair.
So if we
He's
can,
got a
thank you, by the
beautiful
way,
little
that's-
assistant there, so.
So I think what we do then, Tom, if you would like to send this back out in particular, we can make sure Councilmember Garitano gets a chance to review it as well, and and give him some room for some input. And then if we could get another tab added to this that covers the scoring on how that 0, 3, 6, 9 would happen with each of these criteria. So I'm thinking just, kind of the first column is the criteria, second says this is the definition of that criteria, and then the third column would be 0 makes this, 0, 3, whatever would equal all that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
That you put that in a separate, because that'll make it a lot more difficult for him to do his calculations at the end. If you have, just have another sheet on that same document that lists all of those criteria, and then 0, 3, 5,
Well,
9.
he just puts it in a separate worksheet in this workbook, and
Yeah, it'd just be a separate tab. So then if as any of us
That's-
would be going in and scoring it, we would just be able to refer to that as like,
Right.
oh, this is what I need to
Yeah.
score it. It's not gonna mess this sheet just on a separate sheet on this. So it gives,
yeah,
as we're going through and doing that, we can refer back to the definition and understand what the scoring needs to be. It shouldn't mess up his formulas.
Good idea.
Perfect. Great. So
When do we
Mr. Lee,
want
if you're
this
good
done
with
by?
taking that task, what time frame do you need to get that back out? Kind of a turnaround and get that out to the committee so we can start scoring it.
I can get this overall sheet out to define the weights. Could you give me sometime tomorrow, I can get it out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you could, I was thinking more kind of by the end of the week, if you get a chance to kind of
Oh,
by
that'd be
Friday,
perfect.
if you could have it to us. Yeah, if we're not pressed to make a decision on this by Monday, then I say let's again give the time to do it right. So yeah, if you could have it back to the committee by Friday. If you could do me one favor though, and after this, email this to Councilmember Garitano just so he can have a chance to review just the priorities, and then we'll give him a scoring thing back afterwards, if that would be okay.
That sounds good.
And perfect. So if we get that by Friday, oh man, let me pull up a calendar and think about as we get into the holiday
into the
season, it makes this a
holidays,
lot. So if he has that by Friday,
When should we have this back to him by?
well,
March
that's what I'm
date?
kind of looking at and
That's
seeing
what he's looking at.
if he can have it by Friday. Do you think everyone could go through and score it potentially by I would say sometime between the next Wednesday and Friday? Is Wednesday too quick of a turnaround?
Through the 13th or the 15th.
Yeah. If we can have it
Yeah,
by
that's-
Friday, could everybody
It's
get
only
back to
going
by
to
the
get worse
13th?
going further. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's only
So
gonna
maybe
get
we shoot
worse.
for Wednesday, 13th as a deadline. He gets it to us
Mhm.
by Friday. We get it to him by the 13th.
Mhm.
And then man, I'm just looking at the calendar, thinking about what happens after that. Would any, I guess maybe would we be available potentially that next, I know the next week goes into Christmas week, but maybe Monday or Tuesday of that next week, like the 18th or 19th? To just
Well, we've got-
reconvene on the results?
We've got Planning and Parks on the 19th. Could we do the 20th?
I
Or
mean,
is
I can
everybody
do
already hitting the
sort of
road?
whenever, so
I don't know. Are there any other meetings on that date? I can't pull it up right now.
Not on the 20th.
okay. Do we want to do evening or afternoon again? I think evening would probably be better served if we can.
That'd take the pressure off Joe so he could participate.
Yeah, myself as well.
Well, yeah,
So-
you too.
So yeah, so 20th, 5:30 work. Do we want to do 5 and make it a little earlier?
Anytime works for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you guys want to do.
All right, let's do 5 just to make it that slightly earlier time frame. I think that 5 to 5:30 seems to be a substantial difference in time of getting a meeting started and getting it wrapped up.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and we can go over the results then, and if we're all on the same page, then we should have a pretty good idea of what we would recommend going into January.
Mhm.
Perfect.
And we can go enjoy Christmas.
Yeah. Tom, did you get all that as far as the dates of turnaround? So
Yep.
Friday for getting it to us, 13th, we'll get it back to you, and we'll meet at 5 on December 20th.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, got it.
Perfect. All right. Well, I guess that just leaves, unless there's any other discussion, motion for my brain just stopped working.
Adjournment.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, my Councilmember Clark. Non-debatable, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? All right. Thank you guys
Thanks,
for a
you
great
guys.
meeting. Talk to you guys in a week or so.